Hello and welcome to another episode of So Fly. It is the end of January, January 28th. We're recording this. This show's coming out January 30th, so, actually Feb 1st, I guess, so happy February. My name is Mitch, and of course we've got Yilma again in the studio.
Hey, guys.
And we've got Gab.
Hey, everyone.
And we've got a very special guest that we've been trying to get on the show for a little while now, who is an incredible angler from Southern Ontario. He's a legend in these waters. He's been fishing down here for quite some time, and he's an incredible cane bamboo rod builder as well. We're very excited to have him on the show today. We've got James Bond. How's it going, James?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, we're very excited to have you on.
Thanks for coming on this very snowy day.
It's very snowy.
Very snowy.
Very Canadian.
Oh, my God, so Canadian.
15, 20 inches of snow right now.
Centimeters, I think. Is it inches?
Yeah. No, centimeters.
Oh, my God, I was just about to...
I was hoping you guys would catch that.
Yeah, we've got some 40 Creek going on again to make this a nice Canadian winter night interview podcast.
To warm your heart.
Yes. Cheers, Gab.
Cheers.
Little clink. Hey, there we go.
Can we hear that?
You guys leaving me out.
Yelma, of course, and James. Okay, excellent. James, yes, thank you so much for coming on the show. We're very excited to be talking about bamboo rods today. It is a passion, something that I think we're all really interested in learning more about. I have a bamboo rod I've fished, and I think you've fished a Gab before. You've tried it
I fished yours.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I fished yours too.
I've some experience on bamboo, but I wouldn't say that I have because just by grabbing yours.
Yeah, and we really don't know a whole lot about Gab. Geez, my God, what a thing to say. We really don't know a whole lot about bamboo, so it's exciting to have you on. But I guess first, James, we could start with just a little bit about, I guess, your fishing history. How did you get into this crazy world of fly fishing to begin with?
Well, fly fishing was really later on for me. I started off, my father was a fisheries scientist. I was born in New Brunswick.
Cool.
So I started fishing as a toddler on a great big pier that went out in the Bay of Fundy, catching whatever was there. It was a blast. Then my father got transferred to British Columbia. So we moved out there, and my neighbor was an old Scotsman, Archie Spear. He took me out in the Fraser River fishing for salmon. Not with fly fishing tackle, but just fishing.
Yeah.
So it was always a big thing for me. I went and moved back to Ottawa. And Ottawa's not really a trout fly fishing mecca just because it's all
Yeah.
lakes and kind of warm rivers. But, we fished in the rivers. We caught bass and we caught sandfish and pike and muskie and pickerel, and it was a lot of fun. And then I think through the library, I started reading books and, trout and fly fishing and getting the fly fishing magazines back then. And on Saturday afternoons, they had these fly fishing show on ABC, Wide World of Sports. And it just looked like something that was pretty cool. So when I was about 20 years old, that's when I started fly fishing.
Wow, okay, cool. Wow, so, okay, out east, out west, and Ottawa.
In the middle. Yeah.
That's amazing. Ottawa, yeah, I mean, I'm from Ottawa, Aldo's from Ottawa, so we know exactly what you're talking about when you say trout. It's like...
We used to catch some lake trout, which is kind of like catching a car battery. Not a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And we would catch some brook trout. We'd go on the Gatineau Hills and catch little brook trout. But, where was the hatch? Where was the rise? Where was the brown trout? I had to go to... I went to Lake Placid.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first real time when the fishing looked like it was in the magazines. It looked like it was in the books. And, I saw fish rising. I saw bugs in the air. And it's like, this is like amazing. So that's what I just sort of gave up on the spinning tackle and just kept going. And then I had to move to Toronto for work, for my job in the early 1980s. And that's when I moved down here.
Oh, that's crazy. What do you do for work?
I was a manufacturer's agent. I sold sporting goods. I sold ski clothing
Oh, right on.
and Reebok shoes for a long, long time. And yeah,
Did it ever cross over into the fishing sports?
it never did.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's great. So what made you want to give up spin fishing then? I guess
I never really wanted to give it up. I just got pulled into fly fishing.
Yeah.
It's
that's like the classic story, right?
Yeah.
it's the better way to fish for those fish.
Mm-hmm.
You can run it with your Mepps spinner and your ultralight, but
It's the gateway drug. Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, exactly. So
Yeah.
all of a sudden, you're learning about aquatic insects, which you never really learned about because it wasn't important.
No.
And you're learning the names of the bugs, and you're learning, hey, the bugs hatch in the same chronology every year, so, okay, that's cool, I'll learn those. And then in the beginning, you don't really know what bug's in the air, but you kind of figure it out because it's June, so you look at your book or your magazine or your article or whatever, right? So you figure it out, and the more time you spend at it, the more experience you get, the better you become. And that's why fly fishing for me is still an incomplete journey. still learning. I fish with guys that are, I don't know how it happens, but I always seem to fish with guys that are better than me. So I'm always, learning from those guys. And
Yeah, same here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Same here.
same here.
Yeah.
it's incredible,
Gabblers learns from me a lot. But
Look, there's always going to be a better fisherman. There's always going to be a better
Takes you a
fly
lot.
tire.
I
There's
learn
always
from
going to be a better guy. So once you give up on
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
and you just accept it,
Yeah.
and you want to learn, and you listen, and you do your homework,
Mm-hmm.
it's definitely a hobby
Yeah.
that you got to do your homework.
Yeah, you got to do your homework. Do you think that's going away a little bit in the sport of fly fishing? Like, do you see any? There's just it's gotten so big, Like when I started, it was like the books and the bugs. That was only like, I don't know, 15 years ago.
All I know is it's the same fish
Yeah.
in the same rivers, eating the same things. So we had the two-handed revolution. That's still going. It's got great momentum. Now we have the Euro-nymphing revolution, and that's going, and that's got a lot of momentum. But in the end, it's the same fish in the same rivers, eating the same insects. So
Yeah.
there is no shortcut.
It's about knowledge.
Fish whichever way you want. Fish all the different ways. Fish carefully, fish quietly, and you'll have good success. But there's no shortcut
Yeah.
in this one.
But the
I
homework,
love
like we have to do our homework, but that's part of the fun. Like it's pretty cool. Like I've the last 3 days I've been tying a lot. Like I haven't tied for a long time, and then now like I go by spurs.
Yep.
And then like I've been tying for a long time, but I've spent more time on Google than actually tying. Like I'm still reading about like new techniques, and it's changed.
Yeah.
But like the flies are kind of like the same. They're just a little bit different, but
Right.
It's
the
the
fly
same.
in itself is the same. Like it's like for nymphing, like the hair here, the ear hairs.
Mhm.
Like I've been doing this for 30 years. I go in the fly shop now, and I don't recognize the materials.
Yeah.
So that's all changing.
Yeah.
So, you try new things, but I think that ultimately it's steeped in tradition.
Yeah.
And the bugs aren't changing, and the fish aren't changing. So you pull from the past, you pull from what's new, and you adapt and you grow and you take out of the sport whatever you want. Like some guys, you don't have to go in and deep if you don't want. If you want to go deep, go deep. I ended up deep because I took up fly tying and I started building the fishing rods as well. So, there was a guy named Ed Hewitt. He was building rivers, his own rivers. He was this rich guy in the 1930s and
No
40s.
way.
He was building. Oh yeah, he was building his own rivers, studying flies. Like it's been going on forever. You
Jesus.
take out of it whatever you want. Yeah.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. You know
Oh
what,
my
guys?
God.
I'm just gonna build my own river.
Well, he did. Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah.
I've seen this actually, like in the Himalayan part of like India, where there's British colonies. Like they took the stream and kind of like modified it a little bit,
Yeah.
and for like 4 guys to be able to fish each pool. So like they modified it and then they put a branch out in it, and there's like a system like 2x2.
Hey, Hollywood.
Yeah,
Hollywood jumped in with salmon fishing in the Yemen. I mean,
Yeah,
it's like
yeah.
as crazy as it seems. That's the way it goes.
It's true, eh?
But for me, it was books.
Yeah.
Right. So
Right.
there was no internet, and I got to say that YouTube has revolutionized certainly fly tying.
Yeah.
Because I was getting books with recipes, and most of them didn't even have colored pictures, or maybe there was at the back some color plates. So it was like this weird recipe with these weird materials, and make the tail, 1.5 times, But now the guy's there, it's live, it's real.
You can
You
see.
see it, you see the steps, you see the shortcuts. And I think for people, it's a lot easier now.
Oh, yeah.
You want to
Yeah.
tie a fly, you just Google, just go on YouTube, throw in the name, and there's 20 guys.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we talked earlier about Tim Camisa.
Yeah.
He's a guy that I've known from Bamboo, him and his uncle John, and he's become super popular.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In doing those YouTube videos.
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, it's true. I mean, information, it's crazy how accessible everything is. I mean, like there's just, like you said, so many YouTube channels, like podcasts, websites, pictures, everything. Okay, so you come to Toronto, you come down to Southern Ontario. What was your first impression of the water down here?
Well, I was always in warm water streams. So basically, for me, I went around and I ended up on the Credit River. I think because of proximity, and I think because it had brown trout in it, which really wasn't that accessible to me. And the fact that there wasn't that many people around.
Yeah.
There was the Isaac Walton Club, and there was all that going on, but it was pretty accessible and pretty easy. You know, I went to the Grand for a while when it sort of had its heyday, but realistically for me, it was a longer drive.
Yeah.
A different experience, a little more chaotic. Stocked fish, and I hate to say it.
What do you mean by chaotic?
A lot of people,
Yeah.
cars, parking lot, spots,
Yeah.
guys waiting. You don't want to feel like, you know, you're hogging a spot, or you've got guys that are camped out because they know at 7 o'clock it's going to be good. So at 5 o'clock they're sitting in the pool. It's kind of like really not that organic.
Yeah, you
experience.
lose a little of the magic.
You do.
Yeah.
Yeah, you do. So not to knock, you know, it's a fantastic fishery.
For sure.
And so I just ended up going back to the Credit River. I just kept going back to the Credit River. And that's basically where most of my trout fishing has been done here.
It's a special river, the Credit.
Well, it is, because I'm pretty sure they haven't stocked a brown trout since the 1950s.
Really?
You know, I'm pretty sure.
Wow, yeah.
And it's changed a little bit since I've been there, quite a bit, but there was more brook trout. I guess the water's gotten a little bit warmer, a little bit dirtier because of Orangeville. And they're still there, but not as predominant. And now there's Atlantic salmon there, and there's all sorts of government intervention. They want to do this, they want to do that. And I'm worried that in 50 years, I won't be around, but, you know, I hope the fish will still be there.
Oh, yeah, it's true. We see, yeah, exactly. All the development happening, people getting their hands into it, trying to do this and do that, and just kind of mess up the thing that's working instead of just trying to sort of like just bolster it and just make it exist the way it is better.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the ministry says, you know, we want to bring back the wild species. Well, there's not going to be any Atlantic salmon in the Don River.
No.
You know, 100 years ago, they could pitchfork them out of there.
Yeah.
So we've got fish up in the Credit that have been there naturalized for over 50 years. Just leave them alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they're thriving, right? Why not, right? It's a success story. We know it.
They're trying to bring back the Atlantic
not-
salmon, but you're not bringing back horse-drawn carriages either. Like
Exactly,
At
it's a
some
great
point,
point.
you got to accept
Yeah.
It's a great
what has
point.
happened.
Yeah, and why do you want to bring back the Atlantic salmon instead
so-
of saving the brook trout, the brown trout, the amazing fishery that exists, right?
So you can like fight an Atlantic salmon in a pool like the size of this studio.
It's just like we
Like,
talk
sure.
about.
It's not the same. You know?
This is a
It's like-
whole podcast right here.
Yeah.
But it's funny because we all we talk about the Credit all the time with guests and people and everyone we meet, and it's always the same thing. It's like we've got this gem of a resource. It's like let's just protect it instead of try to change it.
That would be my vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, bamboo. How did you find yourself getting into bamboo?
I think it's, well, obviously, I got pulled into trout fishing hard. And because I've always been a reader, I was reading all these books. Most of these books were written in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s. They were all fishing with bamboo rods. And then you start to look at the magazines, and they look kind of beautiful because they're made out of natural materials.
Yeah.
And this guy had one. So I actually ordered one from a company called Thomas & Thomas. And for whatever reason, I never got the rod. I'm not sure the whole story. So I had this money tucked aside that I was going to use to buy this rod. So all of a sudden, I decided I was going to go take a course. So I drove to Michigan. And I spent 5 or 6 days, I can't remember at this point, with a gentleman called Wayne Catnaugh. And there was three of us in his class. And I built a rod. It took me about a week. And that was the start for me. So then I had to come home and I had to compile all the gadgets and the gizmos and the tools. And then just by chance, a few of us got together and we started this gathering called Canadian Cane.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden it wasn't just me in my basement alone trying to figure this out. There was some other guys. And you could share ideas and your struggles and, oh my God, I can't, this is not working. And what glue are you using and what's going on? And I can't get this to work and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, awesome.
So that little bit of cross-pollination, the sharing of people's time and experience, and I just got into it deeper and deeper and deeper, and it's been, well, early 1990s was when that took place, so however many years that has been.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, so the first rod that you got then, how did it come? Like, how did you assemble it? Did it just come as a cane or?
No, it's a round bamboo pole 12 feet long. And it's a nasty looking it's 2 inches round.
Yeah.
And you have to learn where to cut it, split it. That's why they call them split bamboo, because you're splitting this round bamboo.
Yeah.
And then you got to make it into a triangle. And then you got to taper that triangle. Then you got to glue 6 of those triangular strips together for your butt. And then you got to start over again and do it all for your tip. And there's kind of recipes that tell you the thickness. So every 5 inches, you have a known dimension. So it's going from fat to thin to thin. And the tip of a trout rod is about 0.66, so 0.066 inches. So
Jesus.
it's pretty small.
Yeah, very small.
Yeah.
So no instructions. You went there.
I got the course. Yeah, no, I knew nothing.
Nothing. Right.
And I made one.
Yeah.
And I had no tools,
Yeah.
but I've always been handy. You know, it's one thing if you're going to be if you want to take up rod building, being handy helps.
Yep.
So I made my first one. I made my second one. I made my third one. And, you know, it just gets easier. And I never sold a rod for 10 years. I sell them now, but I never sold a rod for 10 years because I never was comfortable.
Really, yeah.
But what happened was we went to these gatherings and we always had sort of deified these guys. You know, this guy is like, oh, his rods must be incredible. His rods must be fantastic. And we go look at them. They're just like ours.
Yeah.
So we're doing okay. But,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Marketing.
it's like playing guitar and singing in your basement's a whole lot different than playing guitar and singing in the coffee shop.
It is.
Yeah.
So,
absolutely.
you know, all of a sudden you're not so nervous. You know, you're not hiding your rods from.
Yeah.
forever.
And you want to share them.
Yeah.
What was the first rod you built? What was the weight? What was the...
7.5 foot 5 weight. It was based on a taper by a man named Paul Young, a noted Michigan builder. Paul Young Perfectionist, it was called.
That's cool.
And yeah, it's a rod I still have.
I was just going to ask, where is that rod today?
So most of the rods are kind of gone away, but that one is still in the tube in the basement.
Oh, wow.
And that one's never leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you cringe a little bit when you look at the shape of the grip and
Yeah.
the thickness of the varnish because, you know, it's a little bit nasty. But I was proud of it. And,
Hell yeah.
And I still am. You know,
Yeah.
it's like anything, you know. You got to just accept what you are and get on with it. You know,
Yeah.
if you're afraid, you're not going to get anywhere. You know, it's like when a guy starts tying flies and you look at it and it's kind of nasty looking and you always say, "Oh, it's going to catch fish."
Yeah.
You know, the rod caught fish, so it's just like the nasty fly, right?
Yep.
You get better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get better
Practice makes perfect, I
for
guess.
sure.
So I want to know more about bamboo in general, where it came from. I think we got the perfect guy to tell us all about where did bamboo originate? How did it grow over the years? What's the history of the bamboo rod?
Well, you know, fishing rods have been around. Who knows? You
Yeah.
know, every country claims to be the guys that invented the fishing rod, but
Mm-hmm.
the kind of fishing rods as we know it. You know, England was kind of the leader back in the day, but those were Greenheart rods, and they were solid rods, and they were kind of shaped, and they weren't split into pieces and brought back in. So there was a guy in the northeast of the United States, and he's credited with building the first split bamboo fly rod.
Okay.
So they had something called Calcutta cane, which wasn't very good, but that's what they used. I don't know. India, maybe?
Was it from Calcutta?
Calcutta? We don't know at this point because that's not what we use now.
Right.
It was called Calcutta cane.
Yeah.
And the rods were big back then. Just all rods were big. And they were a little bit clunky, a little bit heavy.
Kinda
a
sloppy.
A little bit whippy. Yeah, not the greatest. There was no dry fly fishing or anything like that. You know, you fished 3 wet flies on the swing, down and across. And the rods were 9 feet, 10 feet, 11 feet.
Yeah.
So...
Still pretty long. Like 11 feet?
Yeah.
One-handed?
back
One-handed?
in the
That's
day.
the
Well, no,
one-handed
they were
rod, or-
big. No, they were two-handed.
Oh,
Those
okay.
ones.
Okay.
But that's what that's what they were. Because you start with the big clunky rod, and then all of a sudden it gets more refined, more refined. By about 1900, there was quite a few guys, rod companies, making rods, and that's when they started to look like the bamboo rod of today. Kind of looks like the bamboo rod of 1900.
Yeah.
Okay.
So a little more refined, a little more...
Yeah, the shorter rods.
Yeah.
Because they started to build rods for the area you lived in.
Yeah.
More delicate guides, more delicate handles.
Real seats? The same?
Yeah,
or different?
there was some
Yeah.
really, really incredible looking tackle
Yeah.
in the 1920s.
Yeah.
Incredible looking tackle.
Yeah.
So it just kept evolving. But basically, most people, like every fishing rod that people fished with, was a bamboo rod.
Mm-hmm.
So the average guy bought his bamboo rod at the hardware store because most sporting goods stores weren't really around. So you went to the general store in your town where you'd get your boots and your...
It's kind of cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you'd
Yeah,
get
yeah,
your
the
kinda
general
awesome.
store.
That is
huh?
cool,
That's
yeah.
cool.
So it'd be $15 for your rod,
Yeah.
basically.
Whew.
And then in the big cities, New York, Boston, Chicago, Philadelphia, where you had the sportsman,
Yeah.
and then later on San Francisco, you had rods made by the Leonard Rod Company or rods made by Payne, and they were 3 times more, so maybe $50.
Yeah.
And you would buy those in these fancy shops in these fancy towns where you'd get your shotgun. And a lot of the rod makers were gunsmiths in the beginning. It's just kind of this weird thing they got pulled into building these rods. So you would go and buy your Payne rod for $50 at Abercrombie and Fitch in Boston or whatever.
Those are the days, guys. Abercrombie and Fitch rod.
Is that what it was? Abercrombie and Fitch?
But yeah,
It was like
they were
a
still around.
sportsman
What?
store.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I had no idea.
In fact, you'll see a Payne rod, and it'll say, Payne Rod Company on one side of the reel seat, and then on the other side of the reel seat, it'll say, by Abercrombie. And
What?
Fitch.
That's awesome. I had no idea. Oh my God. I like them
yeah.
so much more now, I think.
They're
Yeah.
kind
Or
of,
not. They
Well,
kind of
back
sold
then
out.
they didn't have
It's kind of an urban hipster thing.
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, seriously.
Not even anymore. I think it's past.
That's kind of
It's
cool,
past.
though.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy.
I wonder
Whoa.
what the models were back then. I don't know if there was naked girls and guys
No.
holding
No.
rods. In
Maybe,
their-
actually. Maybe that's what it was.
Back then, there weren't a lot, cars were not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
Roads weren't like they are today. So, the more affluent guy would go fishing for a week or 2 weeks.
Right.
He would go to the Adirondacks. He would go to Michigan, wherever. If you lived in Chicago, you'd end up maybe in Michigan
Right.
or Wisconsin at a camp
Yeah.
and do that whole thing. So that's kind of what it was. And then, after the Second World War, when there was interstate highways, people could bomb around and people had cars. Like everybody had
Right.
to kind of get a car by the 1940s and 50s, but not everybody had a car in the 1920s. So
Right.
it was kind of a rich guy deal
Right.
in the beginning.
Yeah.
But the average Joe that went fishing fished with a rod, with a bamboo rod.
Wow. So, okay. Where does fiberglass come in to play? That's much later.
Yeah. So what happened was, we had World War I, then we had World War II, and during World War II, World War II was pretty incredible because they joined the war after Pearl Harbor, December 7th, 41.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's Jan 1, 42. Everything stopped. You weren't building fishing rods. They were building tanks, B-52 bombers, battleships. So a lot of these companies just stopped making tackle because the government wouldn't let you. The government would come to where you were and say, what have you got in the back? You got nickel silver? We're going to take that because we need it for who knows what.
Yeah.
And by the way, you're going to make canteens now. So this little factory would make canteens or tank
no.
parts or whatever.
So sad.
The war effort, right? You had to participate.
But all of this happened from Jan 1, 1942 till January 1945. 3 years. They built all those B-52s and all these tanks, and all those people they had 2 wars at the same time. You had a war in the Pacific, war in Europe.
Yeah.
The whole country, it was incredible. So everything stopped in fishing tackle. So then, people come back. We start building fishing tackle. Then the Korean War comes. 1952, everybody watched MASH,
Oh, yeah.
That was the Korean War. So the Chinese, who we loved, they were our allies in the Second World War. Now we hate the Chinese because they're helping the Koreans because they're all communists. Now we hate communists.
Yeah.
So the American government decided no more bamboo from China.
Wow.
So that was where all of our bamboo came from. It came from China. So there was no more bamboo left. So that was a problem. And then because they had sort of spent all this money in the war effort, there was a pocket of guys up in the state of Washington, and they had been built using composites and materials to make airplanes. So they're pretty smart guys, so they decided to make fishing rods. A company called Fenwick
Oh.
started to make fishing rods.
Right on.
Everything happened up in Washington State because all the engineers were there, and they knew how to use fiberglass from building airplanes. So they started building fiberglass fishing rods. So all of a sudden, there's no bamboo from China. We got fiberglass. So, it all started. Then there was another company called Lamy Glass. They started up there. So these rods were coming out. But of course, their ad said, feels like bamboo.
Oh, no way.
Because
Of course.
you had
Yeah, it
the
was.
whole world fishing with bamboo. They were going to their hardware store to buy their bamboo fishing rod
Yeah.
for $15.
Yeah.
And there's no more bamboo. So they started using fiberglass.
Yeah.
And then ultimately, we started the space age, and we ended up with graphite. So fiberglass started around, in the 1950s. I brought a little cheat sheet with me here, so around 1950. Fenwick started in 1952,
Yeah.
and so we went, for about 10 years with fiberglass, and then slowly we got into graphite, which is the same concept. Rods were made the same way, just a different material, lighter, stronger. And then Sage came in around 1980. Actually, the same guys that were in the beginning of Fenwick were in the beginning of Sage. So, the poor old bamboo rod was just not that popular anymore.
Yeah.
There were still companies making them, but pretty much everybody had plastic rods. What's interesting, though, is all these fiberglass rods are still around,
Yeah.
but all these fiberglass and early graphite rods are gone. You just never see them. They got thrown in the trash. For some reason, people kept or valued or perceived bamboo rods to be something to keep, and yet these other ones appear to be something that is disposable. So yeah, that's sort of what happened along the way. We change, our needs change, technology changes. We had the space age.
Yeah. That's an interesting. Well, I mean, it's interesting. First of all, that everybody held on to their bamboo rods, even though there was this huge influx of fiberglass and graphite coming through. It's like bamboo is something to treasure. Maybe because of the craftsmanship or just
the material too.
But even like you said, back in the day, it was so clunky. It was just like, for some reason, people just liked it more.
I get calls from the fly shop downtown, and it's, can you appraise this rod? Can you come look at this rod? And I go, and it's a rod that's 80 years old.
Yeah.
They found it in the granddad's closet. Is it worth anything? That's what everybody wants to know. Is it worth anything? So most of the time they're not, because they were $15, and there were millions.
Yeah.
So you do appraisals as well? Like that's a part of your...
Yeah, these are not like official appraisals, but basically I'm like, let's make sure it's not a good one.
Right.
Because some of them can be worth quite a bit of money.
Right. Got it.
I guess when you're so close for so long, from making them to collecting them, you become kind of like the local expert.
Yeah.
Is that something that you would think about doing, like actually getting licensed to do appraisals? Because I know my old professor at OCAD, Anthony Jeffries, he appraises for a living, and he makes a killing.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about that, but I am basically sort of the local guy just by default, if nothing else, right?
Yeah.
But
well, I think before we get into the worth of these things, it's interesting to talk about space age. And did you want to film this one?
Yes.
We're just going to make a short little clip.
Of course. Yeah.
But I definitely want to know about this idea of space age influencing graphite and the whole rod industry and how that stuff all came into things.
And I think it's funny. I think it's interesting that it didn't just come by just because of a new material. It came because of we didn't have the material anymore. We got to think of something else to do.
Yeah, it was actually, well, fiberglass became the replacement because the material wasn't available. And also, I guess the Second World War, all that effort being put into, people don't realize that in the Second World War at the beginning, they didn't have plastic.
Right.
They didn't have saran wrap. So all these things that we take for granted were slowly coming in. They have cotton tarps.
Yeah.
We'll get this plastic sheet. Well, what's plastic?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing with fiberglass. I think fiberglass itself wasn't really invented until the 1930s, so no one really knows about it.
Yeah.
And then the application is we'll use it to build airplanes. And then all of a sudden, when you are a company that's making a material, you say, okay, now we're selling it to airplane companies. Can we make golf clubs? Can we make blenders? Can we make guitars? Can we make cars? What can we use this material for so we can make more money and sell it to more industries?
Yeah.
And that all happens with time. And fiberglass that we now know is used for everything.
Yeah,
Insulation in your house. And,
showers. Yeah. Everything. Hot tubs.
And now fiberglass kind of got bludgeoned by graphite.
Yeah.
But now fiberglass as a material for rods is coming back. It's not as big as graphite, but it's become a
you see it in some places.
niche.
Yeah.
A niche
very
little
niche.
material.
Yeah.
So how does the space age come into this whole thing?
The Russians put a satellite in outer space.
Yeah.
And America went berserk.
Yeah.
So people are building bomb shelters in their backyard. Kids in school are being taught to look away from the nuclear blast. They're selling refrigerators with space age materials. So all these new materials, anything that was made, in the late 1950s was space age because it was the space age because we were Apollo, we were going to put a man on the moon. The Americans, not us, but they were going to put a man on the moon.
Yeah.
And all this money that was spent on space research got us new materials, got us engineers, got us smart people. And then you spin off to where can we sell our material to? So fiberglass kind of got killed by graphite, which was lighter,
Yeah.
stronger. And for fishing, they perceived that to be a better thing. So we all bought those. And then they tried to sell us boron rods. And then they decided, graphite's fine. But then when you look at like Sage ads who've been making graphite rods since 1980,
Yeah.
they're better every year.
Right.
I'm not sure how they do that. It's got to be partly marketing. I know that obviously there is improvement in graphite.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
are lighter. They are faster and stronger. But, is a 10-year-old graphite rod probably pretty darn good? I would think so.
Yeah.
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 So,
yeah. Why not?
So, but, we want to buy.
Advertising does that. Advertising tends to make things taste better, look better.
Yeah, and I think it was Orvis that came out with a lifetime guarantee.
Yeah.
So that drove the price of rods up because everybody had to now offer a lifetime guarantee on their rods.
Right.
So before they'd sell your rod for maybe back then $250, now they're selling you the same rod with a lifetime guarantee for $400 because they got to pay for, if you close your door on your rod, they got to give you another rod. So, the prices got bumped up. And then, of course, the materials are better.
Yeah.
And the rods are lighter. And, they're great rods. I'm not knocking graphite rods at all. They're great rods. But it's, a lot of it is whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Just the stuff built around the rods, I guess. I like the image of them.
Yeah, I mean, people are fishing for tarpon. People are fishing for a lot of exotic species with sport fishing for exotic species that didn't really exist all that often.
Yeah, yeah.
And of course, with two-handed now, two-handed rods were always really cumbersome
Yeah.
and not that pleasing. And now they're so easy to use and they're so much lighter. And,
Yeah.
they've really helped revolutionize fly fishing and bring a lot of new people in. And even guys that were tired of fishing the same way over and over and over again got the two-handed rod. They got re-energized. They're going out more, and you can. It's better, on those big western rivers to have a great big rod. You can belt the line out than standing there with your 9-foot 8-weight rod casting 60, 70 feet. All of a sudden, these guys are casting 120 feet
Yeah.
with ease.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny that you mentioned when the graphite and the fiberglass came out, they say they had a bamboo feel.
that's right.
But now that glass is back, sometimes they say, "Oh, this is a fast glass," so
Yeah.
they make the glass feels a little more like the graphite.
It's romance.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
sizzle. But again, there's like certain Sage rods that might be 20 or 30 years old that were so incredible. They've got like a real loyal following. Everyone's trying to get this particular model in this particular size because that rod was so sweet, so awesome. On the secondary market, everyone wants those ones. So,
Yeah.
it's like anything you evolve.
Yeah. So where is bamboo in this space time? Where are we in the timeline?
Well, what sort of happened with bamboo is the big companies really gave up on making them because it wasn't profitable for them. It takes 50 or 60 hours to build a rod. It takes no time at all to roll a graphite blank.
Yeah.
So pretty much they gave up on it. There are a few companies like Winston, like Thomas & Thomas that still offer, and even Hardy's offer a fly rod made of bamboo. I think Hardy's, when I talked to the guy, roughly 200 rods a year.
Wow.
So it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But it's important heritage product. Same thing for Winston and Thomas &
Yeah.
Thomas. But what sort of happened was the underground revolution of guys like myself building rods. We're the guys that are selling the volume of rods. So everywhere across North America and around the world, there's guys like me, or maybe two guys, building rods and selling 6 rods a year or 20 rods a year, or a really big guy would sell 50 rods a year, something like that. And that's where most of the people that are fishing bamboo rods are getting their rods from. So wherever you live, there's a guy, and you meet the guy. And that's why we have our gathering, Canadian Cane, which is we all get together and meet and share ideas and talk about bamboo. And so that's been a real renaissance. But there was a guy named Ron Barch who had the Planing Form newsletter. He was kind of the guy that was credited with revolutionizing the underground movement. He figures there's about 3,000 guys worldwide building bamboo rods.
Okay.
So it's not a ton of guys worldwide.
Worldwide.
I see a movie,
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Bamboo
I-
Underground Revolution.
I have
Yeah,
a
really.
question. So James, in Southern Ontario or around Toronto, you're the guy. But
Well-
like, how many people there is like you in Ontario, for example? Like, I'm not gonna ask every province. I would love to know,
see,
but
well, so there's a lot of guys that maybe build one or two
okay.
just for themselves.
Mm.
Then there's probably 5 or 6 guys that are maybe selling a few rods every year in Ontario. That's about it. 5 or
Okay.
6 guys.
That's pretty good
Yeah.
though. Like when you
Yeah.
think about it.
Yeah.
I thought you'd be not. I didn't think you'd be the only one, but I didn't think there would be 6 people. So
Yeah.
that's pretty cool.
That is
Yeah,
pretty
you
cool.
know, there's a guy here and there's a guy there.
Mm-hmm.
It like for me, most of the rods that I sell are a guy that has got a rod from me. He went fishing with it. He tried it out. He liked it. He had asked me to make him one. So it's not like I have a website and these strangers order rods from me. It's usually someone that reaches out to me.
Yeah,
Hey,
wants
I
a
heard
new
you make
weight or
rods.
something.
Or I heard you make rods. I'm interested in getting a rod.
Mm.
And mostly they don't know much about it.
Mm-hmm.
They just kind of think that they want one. And I think there's a real fear of bamboo rods, that they're not strong, that they're going to break, that they're delicate. But I keep saying to people, every rod was bamboo till 1950.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're still around because I see them at the fly shop.
Mm-hmm.
So don't worry about it.
Yeah.
You know, go fish with it. They're
But
plenty strong.
But at the same time, like I'm a notorious rod breaker. I lost a tip about like a month ago. I break a rod a year. Like if you break your bamboo rod, yeah, it's kind of it's a little bit nerve wracking. I think because it's like it's organic. There's like something to it. If you break it, you're like ugh, like you had a problem with yours. You didn't break it like by accident or something. It was
I
like
fell on a rock.
Okay, so you did. Never
Fell on
mind.
a rock, and I
Yeah.
landed
You know what? I
on the Sable River in Lake
Yeah,
Placid.
I
There you
bet
go.
you
Yeah.
felt a lot more shittier
I was
than in Ottawa Pescat if you like break a graphite rod.
It's a funny image, people
know?
fumbling around rivers, especially in the
It
Sable.
scares me.
Giant
Well,
boulders.
You got boulders bigger than cars.
Oh yeah, and I slipped off of one, and I fell into another one. Rod first with my 5-weight bamboo rod, and it cracked a little bit of the varnish. I was able to get it repaired,
Yeah.
but it is. I know exactly what you mean. 100%. You know.
Mhm.
Well, I do quite a few repairs, but you know, if a guy like I've had guys come to me with their Hardy. Mostly, it's funny. It's Hardy's because the Simpson store down by the Eaton Center.
Yeah.
They sold a lot of fishing tackle. It was the place to go.
Yeah.
They sold tons of Hardy rods. In Ontario, there's tons of Hardy rods. So I'll get guys that are calling me, I broke my tip. I'm like, okay, I might be able to repair it, but I can build you a new one.
Right.
So I take that broken rod,
Mm-hmm.
I measure it every 5 inches, make a little graph. I know exactly the size of the rod, build another section,
Yeah.
take off the guides, take off the ferrules, put their original
Right.
Hardy guides, the original Hardy ferrule back on.
Mm-hmm.
Bob's
Done.
your uncle.
Yeah, the rod looks like new. You'd never know.
Right.
You know,
Why
you'd never
replace?
know.
Why fix when you can just
Yeah.
rebuild?
Yeah, I mean,
A
well,
section.
sometimes you can fix them, but it just depends where and how
Right.
broken they are.
It's like
Yeah.
when you're like, oh, Gab, here, try this. Like, I'm like so nervous. I'm like, there's no way I'm going to catch fish because my heart is like pumping. Like, I just like, even like if I'm walking with it, I'm like, I don't even like to walk with it.
I don't know about
It's
you
just-
guys, but when I was younger, I would. There's a place called Billings Bridge Plaza. It's on the Rideau River in Ottawa.
Okay.
So I'd ride my bike down this big hill,
Yeah.
and I had my rod on the tube of my bike, and it would vibrate, and inevitably the tip would go into the spokes, snap off.
Oh.
Now you go to the fishing store, you
That's
buy
how-
a
I can
big-
hear
you
it.
buy a
I
bigger
hear it.
guide,
I
and
know.
you stick it on. So all of
Yeah.
a sudden, your rod, which was 8 feet long, is now 7'9".
I have done
7'6".
that. I
Yeah.
have
You know
it.
what?
Yeah.
They were
I think
spinning
everybody
rods. It's fine.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
stuff breaks.
Yeah, I did that with a fly rod once actually.
There
The
you
tip
go.
broke, bought a new ferrule, just stuck it back on.
Ugh.
I still have the rod. It's great.
Good.
Yeah, well, I was bushwhacking and went straight into a tree,
Yeah.
and it just went clack.
Yeah.
The other day, I'm just walking, and I undid all my line, put my fly away. I'm bushwhacking. I come up, put my rod back into the tube, missing the tip. You know, like it's just like
It happens.
it's always the dumbest reason. Like it's just inadvertence.
Well,
it's
mo-
literally just ADD.
Fishing rods tend not to break when you're fishing.
Mm-hmm. No.
It's the way I always say to people: go to the car, take your rod apart, put it in the tube,
Yeah.
then take off your. They just put the rod away.
Put the rod away
Don't put
first.
it on the top.
No.
Yeah.
And
Don't
Lake,
put it in
I remember in
between
Lake
the door.
Placid, I lost my waders. I put them on the top, drove away, and
Oh no way!
yeah.
Waiters.
So now you're heading down to the
Yeah.
store there to get new
Oh,
waders.
that's
yeah.
amazing.
Oh yeah, someone took those waves right away.
That's
You're not
Yeah,
hilarious.
getting
who
those
knows where? Yeah.
I remember I
So-
sent. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you, Gab.
Okay, I sent a rod to St. Croix, and they ask you the reason why you break it, and I was like, oh, it was a huge carp, and that's just a 5-weight, and like I'm thinking like I'm like they were probably like, yeah, bullshit.
Yeah, probably.
They know.
You walked on it.
They know.
You know.
Yeah,
Side note, Billings. How was fishing Billings? Did you ever catch any muskie or anything like that down there?
Yeah, well, okay, so we caught, it's funny because people talk about catch and release. Well, we caught and released fish because we would catch 60 or 80 fish a day.
Oh my
What are you going to do with them all, right? So you just let them go, right?
Yeah.
So we caught pickerel,
Yep.
pike, a lot of bass, a lot of panfish, and people, make fun of panfish, but rock bass and
Yeah,
sunfish,
they're awesome.
awesome.
Yeah.
We caught white bass down there.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it was
In Ottawa, hey, that's
in front of the Mr. Donut
Yeah.
on the Billings Bridge Plaza.
Yeah.
I went there every day with my friends. That's where we spent the day because you're not working yet. You're at that age. You're 13,
Yep.
12, 13, 14, and you didn't need to be supervised back in the day. So you jump on your bike.
Yeah.
It's free to go fishing. We went to Laurentian Trading Post. We got tackle, Canadian Tire on Heron Road.
Yeah.
It's all pretty simple stuff. I got my first fly rod at Canadian Tire on Heron Road. It was a Shakespeare 9-foot, 7-weight, level line. So the line had no taper to
Oh
it.
yeah.
And I had a knockoff of a Martin reel. So not just a Martin, it was a knockoff of a Martin reel.
That's awesome.
And that was my first one. I don't know where that's gone.
I have an old Martin in my bookshelf.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're funny.
They're pretty
man.
bumped up.
Well, that's what I used to fish down there too when I was a teenager, and I had an old setup, a scientific angler setup too, and tons of fish species there. It's crazy, just anything you want to catch. Ottawa's cool like that.
You got me curious. Where's Billingbridge? It's on the Rideau River? Because I probably fished
It's
it like a couple
on
times.
Bank Street,
Okay. No, sorry, I
on
haven't.
the south end of Bank Street.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like bank goes
Near
over.
Carleton University.
Yeah,
Because I
somewhat.
spent
Near
2
Carleton.
years, almost 2 years in Ottawa, and I fished around, but I fished mostly like the Ottawa River and
Champlain.
and then the Gatineau River.
Yeah.
Now, there are
Love
apparently brown trout in the Ottawa River.
Champlain. Yeah, they
Yeah.
stock them. They stock them there.
I
every
saw
summer.
them jump like big one, like
I
in the
caught one
20
once.
inches. I never caught one, but I've saw them like jump.
Yeah,
They just don't stand a chance because the heat and also the
Sure.
birds
Yeah.
and everything
Yeah,
else.
yeah.
And people go and fish them out, but who knows? Maybe they end
stuck
up somewhere.
them-
I don't know.
Yeah, they stuck them already big. I don't know if they still do it though. We keep talking about that.
They anywhere
Someone
from
should email us.
I think they do anywhere from 10 to 18 because I caught one like
okay.
about 10 inches, and then I looked over and I saw a bird, a heron, just grab one out of the river. I'm like, oh, there you
And
go.
there's also like a
Sad.
ridiculous amount of like pike and smallmouth bass in this
Oh, yeah.
place. So like they've been attacked by every
Yeah.
front.
Sure.
Yeah. No, it's cool that you fished in Ottawa. It's really Ottawa's an interesting fishery. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. Excuse my ignorance on this, but
Okay.
I'm using a bamboo rod. Are there different, types of action on it? Like, I have the graphites and there's different speeds that I'm using.
Well, they're really, all fishing rods are somewhat the same in that depending on the taper of the rod
Yeah.
and the materials used, they're going to have different actions.
Right. So it depends on the build.
Yeah, it depends on, a lot. Bamboo rods have changed a little bit. The actions now are a little more modern, especially for guys that have grown up with graphite rods. But the older rods historically were not great for casting because they were designed, as I said, to fish 3 wet flies down and across. So you got to pick up a silk line which gets wet, 3 flies, whip it in the air. You don't need to dry your fly off. There's no need to false cast ever.
Yeah.
Throw that line back down, take a step down the river, and keep going.
Right.
When dry fly fishing started to become more popular, it started to change, and rods, like people like Leonard and people like Payne, were making rods to suit the area that they were from and the fishing that people want. Dry fly fishing, they need to fish differently, and the rods got shorter, much shorter, down to 7 feet, 6.5 feet. So from 9, you're dropping 2.5 feet on these rods. So it all kind of changed at that point when Leonard and Payne were starting to make rods for discernible sportsmen as opposed to the 3 wet fly down and across kind.
Right. Okay. Because I tried Mitch's bamboo. I tried some glass, and I need to find something that's fast with my, because
Your
what I mean?
style.
Yeah, just
you
because
want to
based on my
hammer
style.
it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
until I get more refined, and then maybe once I perfect this specific way I cast, and I can kind of like.
Well,
figure
you
it
know,
out,
you shouldn't have to buy. You shouldn't have to buy a rod and then change your casting style. That's not really fair. So, you know, it's like anything. Like with my rod, you find a rod that suits you.
Yeah.
You know, and everyone has a different style. But typically, the rods are medium action.
Yeah.
I would say medium to
Medium.
fast action because that's what everyone wants.
Yeah. Okay.
Medium fast, yeah. So how do you go? So okay, that's an interesting way to like go into. Well, I guess first of all, when did people get back interested in bamboo? Space is done. The space age is sort of, you know, we've got our new materials. Things are sort of ramping down. How does bamboo kind of come back to the surface?
It's Robert Redford's fault.
Oh,
So
For
the
real?
movie came out. Norman MacLean's book, A River Runs Through It.
yeah.
They made a Hollywood movie, and people were flocking to go fly fishing.
Yeah.
So not only they were like, I want to fly fish, they were like, I want to use a bamboo rod like them.
Well, some did, some didn't, but
Okay.
but that whole
They
push of
created a
people,
movement.
it did. Yeah, it brought people out and in, and where you know it was always kind of an underground thing. It was okay. It was cool again to fish that way. And you know, there's some people think that bamboo guys are snobby guys or elitist guys, and you know that's not really true. They're just
Well, you don't know Mitch, but yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not true. Like we
Yeah,
have
it's
we have
like-
Joe Mixer's uncle. He's like the most open guys with us. You
Yeah.
come here, like
well,
no,
there's jerks everywhere, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah. Bamboo rods, people are cool.
you know, it's romantic. So for me, I read the books. I want to fish kind of that way. The problem with bamboo rods is they're not, you know, you're not going to go steelhead fishing with a great big bamboo rod, most likely. But for small stream trout fishing, rods 8 feet and under, I think bamboo is better. It's more suited to fishing those types of situations than a graphite rod. You don't need bigger, faster, stronger,
Yeah.
lighter to fish when you're casting 30 feet. You want precision. You want smoothness. You want to be able to set the hook. You want to be able to fight the fish. So I think our rods for that purpose, I think, are better than graphite for that purpose. But as they get longer and bigger, you know, if I'm going to go fishing on a salmon trip out east, I'm going to bring a graphite rod with me.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes
yeah,
sense.
that makes
Yeah.
sense. That was
Yeah.
going to be my next question, but yeah.
There's a guy out west, Reed, maybe it was his name that I
Yeah.
saw, that he makes a two-handed bamboo rod, right? For steel. I don't know if it's for like steelhead or something, but I know that
Well,
they kind of focus on that.
See, this is the beauty of the thing. It's where you are. So
Mhm.
Jim Reed
Yeah.
is the guy. He's
Jim
a
Reed,
very
okay.
well-known maker, and he's selling rods, quite a few rods, and they're not free. He does a nice job. And then there's another gentleman named Bob Clay who is selling rods, and he's a salmon guy. He lives up in Steelhead Country, up in the Babine, and he's
Okay.
selling rods as well for two-handed fishing.
So those
And-
guys have steelhead. They make rod for steelhead. You're surrounded by amazing trout fisheries. You make trout rod.
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
New
Makes
England,
so much
like
sense.
we're kind of like New England, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we are, right?
Yeah.
Out there, think about it. They have mountains that melt, and all this stuff comes ripping down, and you got crazy, powerful freestone streams. You need different tackle. It's just a different,
Yeah.
100% different deal.
And the fish that's just back from the ocean as well. I don't know if that matters with the fish in the rod, but like I mean, those fish are pretty
Powerful
strong.
fish,
you know,
right?
like they're
Oh.
powerful. Yeah.
But you know, the people that know tell me that a 10-pound strong steelhead out here is not much different from a 10-pound steelhead
Okay.
out there, but they're catching bigger fish, and those are apparently super powerful, strong fish out there. Those Babine fish, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Jim Reed does a nice job. I don't know him personally. I've corresponded with him. And then Bob Clay, of course, selling two-handed rods as well. And he's a guide, and he's very authentic, too.
Yeah. So River Runs Through It comes out. People are back into fly fishing.
Yep.
It's crazy. Sports taking off. Everybody's flocking to the fly stores. Bamboo rods are gaining importance.
Yep.
And the Canadian Cane, the gathering, kicks off.
Yeah, so the
around there?
gathering, our first gathering was, we had our meeting in 1994. There was about 10 guys or so.
Yep.
We had our first gathering in 1995. So the 10 guys have dwindled down to 2, George and myself. And basically what it is there was a a gathering out in Western Canada.
Okay.
But that's pretty far and very expensive for the average guy to go to. So he said, we need our own.
Mm-hmm.
So we went. They were every 2 years. So we went on the year that they weren't having their event. And we made up a flyer. And we sent the word around, and 40 people came. Some were mostly builders, amateur builders, some guys that wanted to get into building. So we've been going since then, 1995. I think we're going again in May of 2019. In 2017, we had about 70 people. So it's 2 days in Fergus at a barn.
Yeah.
And it's anybody, everyone's welcome to come. We feed you, and we have little seminars on a rod. It's not so much on starting rod making, because most of us have already started. So that would be counterproductive, right?
Yeah.
But I'll do a demonstration on varnishing, or Joe will do a demonstration on quad rods, and so will do a demonstration on designing a taper,
Right.
or how to wrap guides, or how to split bamboo, or whatever. So it's kind of like a get-together. Primarily, it's a get-together,
Yeah.
a reason for us to all reconnect, and also for a newcomer to come in and be welcomed into the community. So if a guy comes and wants to get started, he's going to meet people.
Yeah.
If he lives in London, or if he lives in Hamilton or whatever, he's going to find a guy near him. Hey, and the question is, can I come over? So now you go over to the stranger's house, but you're not strangers anymore.
Yeah.
And he's showing you all this stuff because he's proud of it, and he's got his equipment, and he's showing his rod that he made, and it's really, really organic. It's really fun, and it's important now. The problem is, we're doing a podcast, but I'm 62, so most of the guys are around my age, and it's hard to get new, younger guys. We have a few, but it's, it takes 50, 60 hours to build a rod. You need some tackle. If you live in an apartment, you're just getting out. It's probably not a hobby that you're going to dive into, but, hopefully you'll get peaked,
Yeah.
and start to
Mitch wants to
understand,
get
do
into
some
it.
reading. Yeah, it's a blast.
Definitely.
It's like anything else. It's a blast. It's like fly tying. It's a
Yeah.
blast.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing, like the amount of work that goes into building a rod, and like you said, like fly tying, you can fish with that rod, and it's something really special and unique, right?
Yeah. So guys like myself, Joe, and Roy, we've gone fishing, and we've caught the fish on the rod that we made with the fly that we tied. And
Yeah.
I made a reel. So once.
Oh, no way.
Oh,
Yeah, I
really?
made a
That's
reel.
cool.
I've only made
Wow.
one. Yeah.
Oh my God,
So
what was that?
what?
The process behind that?
You made a bamboo reel? I'm just
No, I made a reel. No, it looks like a Hardy reel. It's funny because it wasn't that hard to make the reel, but it was really hard to make the drag.
Yeah, yeah.
So it was kind of a.
That's great.
So
But
you're
that's
like
what I
really handy.
I'm really handy.
Yeah.
I got to say, my dad had the handy gene. I got the handy gene.
Yeah.
See, for me, if I would make a rod, it would look terrible. I can't even put frame together.
And this
they
guy's
look
happily
straight.
married and just,
Yeah, man.
desired by his
But you know
wife. I
what?
don't get
You
it.
know why I'm married? Because I can't take care of a house. I need someone to do that. Like
Amazing.
I can't fix shit and stuff. So I'm not handy. I love I'm super impressed with rod builders, and I love meeting them
Yeah.
because there's no way I could do as fine as an art form that I could do. I'm so impressed.
Well, one of the
You,
questions.
take a pieces of dry grass, because bamboo is oversized grass that's dry,
Yeah.
and then you cut it in 4 pieces and make a rod. I'm so impressed. It
It's
blows my mind.
the question I get the most is, is it hard? And it's not hard. It's not hard. Learning a second language is hard. Learning a musical instrument is hard. Learning to make a
I'm
bamboo
bilingual.
rod
I'm
is not
bilingual. I got
hard.
it.
Well, there you go. Yeah, it's not hard. It's not hard.
Yeah.
It's time and
No, but
technicality, right?
it's time and effort.
Yeah.
It's time and
Time
effort and
effort,
homework. You said
Some patience, homework, studying.
reading.
A little bit of passion, too.
But
A lot of
hopefully you get that that snowballs. That's
Right.
what.
Yeah, I
what
think
hope-
passion, you nurture it, right? Like at first you're curious, then you're interested, then you become passionate.
Yeah, it's like fly tying. I just gonna tie a few flies, and then like for me, my fly tying has sort of evolved because now basically I tie 12 flies. There's certain flies that I need to go fishing. I tie the same 12 flies over and over. I got Rubbermaid containers full of stuff I'll never use.
Yeah.
I just tie the same 12 flies.
It's like I tie my dad's flies for his summer, and it's basically muddler minnows in 3 sizes.
There you go.
It's
Yeah.
the same flies,
Yeah.
just in 3 different sizes.
It's funny how we do
Maybe
that.
a couple colors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you say you tied the same 12 flies, but when it comes to building a rod, how do you approach that? Are you building the same rods over and over, or how do you?
Well, basically for us, it's just like graphite. So you've got the length of the rod. So for bamboo trout, it's 7. Well, principally for us in Ontario anyway, it's 7 to 8 feet.
Mm-hmm.
After 8 feet, they start to get a little bit heavy, tip heavy, right?
Right.
So that's kind of what we do. And then it's just like graphite, it's the weight, the 3-weight, 4-weight, 5-weight. My world is 4-weight, 5-weight. Sometimes 7. I'll jump to 7.
Yeah.
Bass or steelhead.
Yeah.
But still, I try to go from 7 to 8 feet. But some rods are 7, 7.3, 7.6, 7.9,
Mm-hmm.
8. And they all have different properties to them. I've got rods that are spectacular and beautiful. I can fish a dry fly, but there's no way I could throw on a heavy nymph with that rod in the early part of the season and go fishing with it. It just would not go well.
Mm-hmm.
So you need a rod that's a lot stronger, stronger in the tip, that can handle maybe a couple, dare I say it, split shot or something, whatever you need to,
Mm-hmm.
to get the fly there. So you can do all those things on bamboo. And just like you guys know as being trout fishermen, there's no one size, right?
Right.
So you buy one, and then all of
Yep.
a sudden you buy a second.
Now you
one,
carry
and
3 rods to
And
the river
exactly,
now.
now you got-
2,
yeah.
3 rods.
Yeah, so-
So do you find yourself getting creative with the process and building rods specific to a place or a condition or?
Well, for me, I've kind of gone a different way. So I've kind of adopted my mantra when I go to build a rod is that if I could take that rod in a time machine and somebody found it in 1940 on their stream, it would look like it belonged.
Right.
So for me, there's no space age. I don't use fancy. It has to look like the rod that was in Abercrombie and Fitch in 1950.
Mm-hmm.
It has to look that way. So that's my journey, right? There are other guys' journeys that they want to hollow their rods. They want to make them stronger. They want to make bigger. They want to make longer. Everyone's journey, everyone's story is a little bit different. So I've kind of decided, because it's hard to be. You can be a jack of all trades, master of none. My rods, I use the same color threads. I use the same varnish. So my rod looks like my rod, whether it's 7 feet or 8 feet. They're all look the same, and
It's good branding.
You got your
good branding
style.
philosophy.
Yeah, you got your
it's,
style.
It's like a
a
musician,
Yeah. Of course.
you've got to be true to your thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to buy a real fancy Bubinga, highly figured reel seat because they didn't have them back there. They used trees that were out back, walnut or whatever, right? And
Yeah.
you're building rods in a factory in New York State. You're going to get wood from New York State, not from the Brazilian rainforest.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I'm not passing judgment on other guys. Some guys want to go highly decorated. They want to engrave everything. My rods, if that's what it's like, I guess if you're a guitar maker, you want to build your guitars to look, like a guitar,
Yeah.
If you get too weird, then guys are like, you know what,
Yeah,
that's why you want to go there.
It's not for the weird clientele, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Do you make your rods? I'm assuming you make your rods on demand. So, like, let's say Mitch and I want one, would call you. You don't
Yeah,
have-
pretty much. I sometimes have a rod around because I'll bang one out, but typically I'll meet you.
Mhm.
We'll talk about your needs.
Exactly.
What's your ideal day? What are you going to fish mostly? Well, mostly I'm going to go to the Grand, mostly I'm going to go to the Credit, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And this is what I think my day is. And I'll say, okay, I'd go here. My theory on first rods is it's more like an SUV. So it does a lot of things. Because if the car's too small, you can't, so if I get you the bigger rod, a little bit stronger, you can do anything you want. You're not going to be pigeonholed into just fishing light flies.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
I kind of go that approach. But if I have a guy who comes and says, I go up, I like to fish for headwater brook trout. I'm going to make him a nice small rod,
Yeah.
lightweight. That's going to be perfect. And I'm going to say to him, hey, make sure, you don't start throwing a woolly bugger, in size 4. Like, that's not what this rod's going to do,
Yeah, for
right?
sure.
Yeah.
So I told the guy a rod, he was a retired OPP guy, and I want to go bass fishing. And I'm like, okay, calm down. Like, you can go on the dock and catch a bass, no problem. But, it's, be careful. So he got it. But
Yeah. You talk about history and heritage going into the ways you like to fish bamboo and having a rod that looks like it could be fished in 1950. Would you say that's what inspires you as a builder?
For sure. For me, I mean, it's that direct connection to the golden age of fishing.
Mm-hmm.
The golden age. There's a famous guy named Art Flick. I don't know if you've heard of Art.
Yeah,
So he's a fly tyer, and his dad owned a lodge in New York State, and he would take people out fishing. So he gets a call from this judge. He takes him out fishing, and the judge says, do you do any dry fly fishing? And Art Flick's like, well, what's dry fly fishing? Like, they didn't even know. Mm-hmm. He goes, I fish 3-wood flies on the swing. So,
wow.
It's all very new. It's all very real.
Mm-hmm.
So these guys are now passed away, but they're only one generation away.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I don't identify so much with the guy in 1880.
Mm-hmm.
Those rods don't really appeal to me, but starting from 1900 to 1950, for me, those are the rods that I like.
Yeah.
That are the guys that it's no different than musical tastes.
Yeah.
Those are the guys that I revere.
Yeah.
Guys like Garrison Dickerson, Paul Young, people that made a living making rods, the Leonard Rod Company, those are the rods that I like. So that's what I do. And I was just down in Pennsylvania the weekend with a friend of mine, Tim Abbott. He's a really smart guy. He builds incredible rods, but his rods don't look like mine. His philosophy is different. He builds them a different way. They have a different look to them, and they're fantastic. And so there's it's not all the same. Like, there's lots of guys doing different things, different looks. There's 4-sided rods, 5-sided rods, 6-sided rods. There's bamboo rods with graphite ferrules. Mm-hmm. There's bamboo rods with splice ferrules where there are no ferrule, where they're lashed together, so to speak. So there's lots of different stuff out there.
Yeah.
It's whatever you want. I tend to be
You're 3 sides, right?
Yeah, 6 sides.
6 sides.
6 sides.
Hexagon.
Really?
Yeah,
I thought
I'm
3
a
was the one back then. Or did I miss under?
No, it's a 6.
6. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
6 is pretty much the all day, every day.
Is there anything called the 3? I don't know why I said that.
No.
There's 4 quads.
There's 4. There's a quad. Oh my
Yeah.
god! Can you cut this out?
I think it's good to know because it's interesting that there's a quad type.
Yeah, so a 4-sided rod, the casting properties are much different. That rod is much different than a 6-sided rod.
Yeah.
Why do those exist? Like, why have a 4-sided rod?
Well, why not? There were 12-sided rods.
Oh, no way.
People have
Oh,
tried
so
all
there's a
kinds
huge
of things.
variation.
So,
Oh.
But wouldn't
Okay.
more pieces, more sides, more faces add to the fragility of the rod?
no, I don't think so. It's just the casting properties. A 4-sided rod. My friend George, he took a rod and he built it in a 4-side, and he built it in a 5-side, and he built it in a 6-side. So it was a scientific project. So you could go cast those rods at the Canadian Cane Gathering, and you could say, "Hey, here it is," and you could say, "Wow, that's totally different." I know Joe likes the 4-sided rods.
Yeah.
They're a little bit more difficult to make, a little more fussy,
Yeah.
and very valid. And the 5-side is very valid as well.
Interesting. So I'm sure someone's built a 3-sided rod at one point.
Oh, who knows?
Probably.
Yeah.
That
You
might
could be,
be
or
that,
Yelma,
yeah.
you could be the first.
No, you can cut it out. Cut it out of the podcast.
It's really interesting to talk about how the sport's changing, how it's changed so much over the years so quickly, and it's always great to meet people who kind of pay respect to like where it's come from and appreciate the past. I think it's fly fishing. That's a huge thing for me is where it came from and all the knowledge and all the passion that's gone into it over the years. So it's really cool. You talk about it like that way, but you were just down in New Jersey, right?
At the there's a big fly fishing show.
Yeah.
It kind of goes around North America, So
Yeah.
it used to be called the Somerset Show. It's in New Jersey, and it's a great big trade show where there's booths from all the companies. A lot of travel companies are there.
Innovation and all that stuff too is going on, I imagine, right?
Yeah, it's a consumer show.
Right.
It's for people that participate in the industry. So tackle sellers,
Yeah.
fly tying material guys like Sage has a booth and Sims has a booth, and they're not selling to the consumer, but they have their people there, and you can see all their products all in one place.
Showing
ask the
what's new
questions.
this year.
Yeah,
and-
so let's say you want to buy a new rod, you can go talk to the Sage guy, go talk to the Winston guy, the Reddington guy. They all have a booth there.
Yeah.
Plus, there's a million guys tying flies. And we forget in Ontario because we kind of get stuck in our little world, but they have their whole saltwater fishing, right? So
Yeah.
they've got striper
Nice.
fishing. So all those guys are there tying these giant flies.
Yeah.
And then there's seminars going on and, learning to read the water. And,
Yeah.
I went to quite a few seminars, but the one I went to was by Gary Borger. And this is a guy who made a video in 1982, which was the first fly fishing instructional video ever made.
What?
It was funded by 3M. They made these movies. And for me, honest to God, I played that thing till it was dead. This man's voice is in my head for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
And I think he was born around 1945, whatever that works out to be. So he's up there doing these seminars still. I went to listen not so much to reading the water
Yeah.
because, that's
Sure.
fine. I think I figured that part out.
Yeah.
But because he's such an engaging speaker, such
Scary.
a famous guy. And
Yeah.
I had so entertained.
Yeah.
So entertained. He told me one thing. You always, whenever you go to a seminar or speaker, you want to find one thing, one thing that you can take away. And if you can get that in an hour, you're golden. So what he gave me was, fish is a wild animal. Wild animals only need three things: don't get eaten, eat enough to stay alive, make babies.
Yeah.
That's it. So when you're trout fishing and you got that in your mind, where's the fish going to be that he's not going to be eaten? Where's the fish going to be so you can eat to stay alive? You're already trying to figure things out.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
It was a nice little simple way of distilling
Absolutely.
the whole thing down.
It is. It's so interesting how simple that is, right? But it's sometimes maybe we just lose sight of the simplicity of it.
They're not smart.
Yeah.
Fish don't have town hall meetings. They don't talk to one another. People say, "Well, they've learned not to take that flight." No, they haven't.
Yeah.
They're living in the same streams,
Yeah.
eating the same insects
Yeah.
at the same time in the same place that
Yeah.
they did 70 years ago.
Always right where they've always been, right?
You got it.
Yeah.
It's up to you.
Exactly.
The full one
Crack the code.
in their own environment.
That's right. Yeah.
Mhm.
No, for sure.
Well, we do a segment on the show called Mitchie's Fishies 5, where we ask the guest 5 questions. We always ask these same 5 questions because, you usually change questions throughout the show based on who we have on. It's always a different conversation, but these 5 always stick around. So I think we're going to ask you these 5. But to segue into that, I want to ask just one question that we've touched on,
Yep.
but just to kind of sum up the whole bamboo world before heading into Mitchie's Fishies 5, and that is, why do you fly fish with bamboo rods?
I think small stream fly fishing for trout, the bamboo rod's a superior fishing tool. It is as simple as that. It is a serious. If I was going to fly to Iceland to fish for salmon, I'm going to grab a graphite rod. But small stream fly fishing for trout in Ontario, Pennsylvania, all these places, I want a bamboo rod. I think it's a better fishing tool.
It's a great answer, and I kind of want to leave it at that so that
Yeah.
people can go figure it out and see why for themselves. Mitchie's Fishies 5. Okay, we got 5 questions here, and these are like stripped back. Take as long as you want to answer.
Sure.
Think about them, whatever. So this first question is, what is your favorite fish and why?
Well, I'm going to have to say it's the brown trout because they're so beautiful. I mean, I think that's what pulled me in. It was buying the magazines, Field and Stream, Fly Fisherman in the 1970s, 1980s, seeing these pictures of these fish. They did not look like smallmouth bass.
Yeah,
They were spectacular looking. So I'm going to go with the brown trout.
that brown trout are amazing.
It's
love 'em.
it's a recurrent fish that we hear from our guests. that
Southern
it's their
Ontario.
favorite.
We love our brown trout in Southern Ontario, It's funny.
Well,
I love it.
I didn't love it until I caught one.
Yeah,
So there you go,
They look
folks.
differently everywhere too, which is kind of neat. Like they look
Yeah.
differently based on the environment. So.
Yeah.
But I gotta
True.
say the brown trout from the upper credit, there's like something special about
There
them.
is.
Yeah.
There is.
They like
Mhm.
the color I've seen on them, like from like blue cheeks to buttery bottom, and so colorful.
upstate, man, too. Upstate New York.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
The fish up there are just amazing.
I didn't see them from my own eyes, and the upper credit I've seen it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
They
It's
are
true.
a beautiful kind.
It's true. So this next question can be any time of year, any time of day, whenever. But if you could fish anywhere in the world, assuming it's the best season for it, where would you go right now and why?
Anywhere, anytime.
Anywhere, anytime. Free pass this year.
It would be the Rocky Mountains.
Yeah.
I think. I was able to fish in Colorado quite a bit. I fished in Washington, Idaho. There's so much angling opportunity there. I think the thing that pulled me into fly fishing and trout fishing in the beginning was that it is always taking place in a beautiful area.
Yeah.
So you think the Adirondacks are beautiful? Go to Colorado.
Oh man, I need to.
It's like having a zoom lens. It's like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Aldo and I went fishing for the first. Aldo for the second time. For me, the first time in Montana in November.
Yep.
And I totally get it now. Before I was like, oh yeah, I totally get it. The Rockies are cool. Now that I have experienced it, I more than get it now. I'm like, yes,
You can go float.
yes, the Rocky Mountains.
Float fishing, is pretty expensive if you're a tourist, because it's quite a bit of money per day. But you can go float fishing. You can go wade fishing. You can go high altitude mountain. So hike and camp and go fish a little tiny lake that has beautiful, small, wonderful fish in it. You're probably the only person there. Take a trip on horseback. Like it's,
The horseback is something I really want to do.
That's cool. That's cool.
get your inner cowboy and
Yeah.
and go to places that you just can't get to on foot.
Yeah.
And so the Rocky Mountains, whether it's in Canada or America, doesn't really matter.
No, I love that.
Yeah.
Okay, number 3. Maybe this ties into the last one. I'm not sure, but what is your best fishing memory? Best or favorite fishing memory?
Well, fishing in the saltwater on the pier in St. Andrews, New Brunswick,
Yeah.
Where it all started.
where it all started, still resonates with me. I was able to go back and spend some summers with my godmother there. You can catch a flounder or a skate or a sculpin or a mackerel or a pollock, pretty amazing. For trout fishing, I've been pretty lucky. I've been able to go to some pretty cool places, but, Colorado, fishing in the Frying Pan River, fishing in the Yakima River, fishing, those places are pretty amazing for me.
Yeah. Out east sounds amazing too. And we talk about the Rockies, but out east is just like, especially learning to fish in such a crazy place. Number 4 is quite a broad one. It's a dig deeper. Why do you fly fish?
Because I want to.
That's perfect.
So when
I
you
love it.
get up in the morning and you go to work and you wish you were fishing, then when you got free time, you go fishing. And for me, it's kind of bizarre because I don't fish that much compared to some people, like Bill, who we all know. Bill's out there making it happen. But-
Almost every day.
So for me, for my fishing, it's my book collection, it's fly tying, it's rod making. I can do at home. We live in a country where, for us, for trout, trout fishing is basically May 1, end of September.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? You can go steal. I do a tiny bit of steelhead fishing. I'm not particularly great at it. I do enjoy it. I'll go out, but basically, I stop fishing around November 15, December 1, or whatever, and I can still fish at home.
Yeah.
So that's why
It's a great way to look
it
at
so
it.
much.
Yeah, it's a great way to look at it because it's really like fly fishing is not just about being actually on the water, right? It's everything else around it. The books, like you say, the tying,
Doing
the
your homework,
rods.
like we
Yeah.
said earlier.
just like anything nowadays too with the internet, watching videos, listening to podcasts.
It's a nice commitment.
Yeah.
all the time.
This is my favorite Mitchie's Fishy, and it's the last of the Mitchie's Fishies 5. And
They've been good so far, so a lot of
one's-
pressure on
it's
you
the-
now.
This one's the best. I love this one because everybody's always had such a kick-ass answer.
I love it. I'm excited, actually.
Me too. Okay, so this one is, what fly pattern represents you the best and why? If you were a fly, what would you be?
Well, I'd probably be a red quill or a Hendrickson because it's the first dry fly of the season. Art Flick, he's sort of one of my guys, if you're going to have a guy. He invented the red quill. I think Catskill dry flies are the most beautiful flies in the world.
Mm-hmm.
There's some crazy Italian guy on YouTube. I don't know his name. He's got some tattoos, and he's a young guy, and he wears a vest.
Is his name Aldo?
No, he's from Italy because they're in Italian.
Yeah.
He ties these spectacular. If you ever go on YouTube, look for this guy. Catskill dry flies. You're going to find them. These flies, when they're finished,
Oh, yeah.
are so perfect. The proportion so fantastic. So that's what I would be if I was, my favorite fly, or picking a fly.
That's a great. I love that answer. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it. And I think it.
awesome.
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. James, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Oh, it's my absolute pleasure.
It
Thank you
has
so
been
much.
amazing, and we need to have you on again too in the future.
Well, I need to do a shameless plug for Canadian Cane.
That's exactly what we want.
Yeah.
So CanadianCane.com. So that's where you go to find out. It's in Fergus, Ontario. I think it's May 25th. It's the weekend after our May 24th. So it's
Okay, yeah.
It's it's Memorial Day weekend in the U.S. Anyone that is welcome. Don't feel intimidated.
We should go.
It's
I'm interested. I want to go.
It's first of all, there's rods to cast and see, and people, and we feed you and we give you dinner. And if you're at all thinking about it, building a bamboo rod or learning more about bamboo rods or meeting the other people in Ontario on bamboo rods, it's not. It's you kind of have to get involved. Don't just come and stand there. You got to come and figure it out. So we'd love to have the people come to that. If anybody has any bamboo questions, like I get a lot of emails through the Canadian Cane website.
Yep.
But if somebody wants to learn how to get started, if somebody wants to take lessons, if someone needs anything, you can reach out to me. I am canebuilder@gmail.com.
That's great.
I love it.
That's great.
Cane builder. I love
it's
it. I love
pretty
it.
simple.
I love it.
But I get questions all the time. I got this rod. They send me these pictures, and they're horrible pictures because taking a picture of a 9-foot thing with your cell phone camera is not. I don't know what it is half the time.
Yeah.
But so feel free to reach out to me and ask me any questions. Happy to do it.
Awesome. Yeah, and we'll put the link to the website and the email in our show notes. So,
Appreciate it.
and we'll post about it on social too. So,
Yeah.
100%. Canadian The Gathering sounds awesome. We've heard about it for years. Yeah, we should all go. It'd be
We should
sweet.
show up this year.
It'd be really
We
cool
should
to
show up.
see what it's all about.
I'd love that.
Yeah. And again, thank you so much for coming on.
My absolute pleasure.
It's been amazing. Okay, thank you so much again to James Bond for coming on the show. That was amazing conversation. Such an interesting, cool, amazing dude. I mean, like the fact that he builds these rods and fly fishes the way he does. It's just like awesome show. Thank you so much for coming on. And everybody check out Canadian Cane and check out The Gathering coming up in May. We'll post those notes on social, post them in the show notes. And so now we're going to talk about something we put out on the New Year's show, end of the year show, which was inviting people to send us their stories from 2018. I think this is an appropriate time to bring up these stories. We got sent tons of stories from people that were wrapping up their 2018 year. And, being in the end of January now, this is our final look back at 2018, we're going to read these stories out on air. And we're going to pick a couple to send some hoodies, some of our winners for these hoodies. We're going to send 2 hoodies out to people.
The famously
Famously
comfortable. Hoodie.
comfortable.
Famously. My mother-in-law said they were amazing.
They're great, man. I wear mine all the time. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for sending in your stories. First of all, we're going to kick it off with Mike Lennox. Mike, here is Mike's best story from 2018. It was a beautiful day in early May on the beautiful Ganaraska River. We were there midweek and the crowds were low and the fish were numerous. Well, it's hard to feel zen-like feelings while downtown Port Hope. The beautiful chrome steelhead had us giddy and thankful for our good timing and plentiful fish. So as we were filming, we noticed someone on the bridge close to us. She donned a trench coat and was somewhere in the 40 to 50-year-old range. She said, quote, "Any of you fellas want to catch me for supper?" Quote. And opened up her trench coat, which she was not wearing anything underneath. It was quite a scenario similar to a car crash, and they wanted to look away but couldn't, and they politely declined to continue to fish. Amazing story, man.
That's
Thank
an
you.
awesome story.
Yes.
In Port Hope.
Good old Port Hope, eh? Mike, thanks for sending that in, my friend. Gab, want to take this next one?
All right. This one is from Justin Garrett. And here it goes. Fishing has been a part of my life since I could throw a line forward. As a young lad, it was tossing a split worm on a hook off our homemade dock into the water of Lake Erie, hoping to land some perch, but more often would reel in a log in the shape of a sheephead. Oh, sheephead are awesome, eh?
Yeah.
As the year have come and gone, so did fishing. Some of those years were fished more than others. Then a few years ago, I found fly fishing. Totally cool. It hit me like a Mack truck colliding with a moose on a on the Transcan.
Awesome
So
analogy.
good, so good. I'm still quite new to casting fly rod, going into my 4th year now. With I am addicted. I don't get as much. I don't get out as much as I'd like to. With a 19 months old daughter, another one on the way. Hey, just say put them in your backpack.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
by
I
the
did
way.
that with my dog. And congratulations, yeah.
Yeah, I did that with my dog.
Yeah, with my Chihuahua, I put him in the backpack.
What was his
Cast
name
fly
again?
rod. Nacho.
Oh, and the good old
Very
Nacho.
original.
Yep.
Okay. I'm still okay. And then yeah, he's got 19 months years old. He's got another one on the way, and you get at least an hour from anything but the Thames. Oh, I fished the Thames before. It's awesome. There's got good smallmouth and good carp. I'm sure there's more stuff, but one of my favorite moments of 2018 was taking my beautiful daughter, who was just under a year, and my beautiful wife to join in the adventure on the Maitland River. Kate is my best friend, has always been up for a plan our adventure, and I look forward to spending more time on the water with her. She rocked her waders through her first pregnancy and even caught a few fish. And
awesome.
yeah, congrats, because I really want to take my wife too. I totally get it. You know, it should be enjoyed by everyone in the family. You got to teach them young. I was aiming for trout on the Maitland a couple of weeks after opener, but the journey was really just to show our daughter, Ellie, the world of fly fishing. It was bluebird day and little to no waiting, and no trout were found. We did land a couple of smallies and nipped at a beaded nymph. It was pretty cool, and netting one that was a good size, all of which were quickly released and known to be out of season. We fished for maybe 2 hours close to the town of Ben Miller, hiked back out to our car, and had a delicious lunch in Goderich, Ontario, with some awesome dessert and memories to store away. I do hope my children will fall in love with the world of fishing and on the fly the way that I have, but I will support them in any outdoor activity. What a beautiful thing to say. I don't have kids yet. I'm just an uncle, but this is the way to approach it.
Great story.
Yes.
That's a great memory from
So
2018.
awesome.
Thank you so much, Justin.
Take your kids.
And now we've got one sent in by Mitchell Roberts. Mitchell, thanks for sending this in. His story from 2018 goes like this. The very last weekend of salmon season, I made my way to my favorite river in Nova Scotia. My waders had a horrible leak in them, so I had to get to Halifax first to send them away for repairs. And while I was at it, I bit the bullet and bought a nicer set. I set up for the river and got there kind of late. However, there was no one at the pool when I arrived. I geared up, stepped in. 20 minutes later, I was into a beautiful 10-pound buck, and I landed him. Took a quick photo, and you can see that on his Instagram at Life Between Lines. He revived him, watched him swim away with lots of gusto, and he says it was an amazing feeling. Shortly after, a good friend showed up, and Mitchell says that he was about halfway through the pool at this point. He hadn't been there 5 minutes before, and then Mitchell hooked into a really fresh 15-pound hen. She was full of energy, jumped immediately. As soon as she did that, knowing how inexperienced I am, I turned to my friend and said, $10 says I lose this fish. Unfortunately, I was right and lost her on the 4th leap. But I was so thrilled to hook in such an amazing fish. And to top that all off, I hooked and lost yet another fish about 10 minutes later. That's an amazing story, Mitchell. Thank you so much for sending it in. Even catching, even just hooking into fish and losing them can be an amazing experience.
Some best fish are the one that were never brought to your hand.
Oh my God, somebody put that on a t-shirt quick. Okay, we've got another story sent in from Francis.
All right, I want to read this one. Read this one.
Francis, okay.
Hey, Francis Delaurier from my mother province. Yes, and this guy's got it right, and you're going to know right away why. In 2018, was a great fishing year for me. I started working remotely so I could move to Gaspésie, Quebec to enjoy the outdoor more. My best memory for this year is from late September while fishing striped bass. At that point of the year, all the summer tourists are gone and fishing spots are really quiet. It was about 10 p.m. on a really cold night, not a cloud in the sky. I could see the stars like never before. I was knee-deep in the sea, and the distinctive sound of striped bass jumping, attacking were coming from all around me. I was casting my fly wherever I was hearing those sounds, In the end, I caught a few average-sized basses. That night, it was such a peaceful moment, really relaxing. Quiet and peaceful place, no sound but those of the fish. This is my yoga. And that was from Francis Delaurier.
All right, Adam Mass, here we go. Thank you so much for sending the story in. This is Adam's favorite 2018 moment. My favorite memory for me this fishing season was teaching my girlfriend's brother, Damien, how to fly fish. Damien has autism and sometimes struggles with tasks that require a lot of coordination, such as fly casting does. We live in Calgary, Alberta, and get the pleasure of fishing on the Bow River. Although the Bow has an abundance of really nice fish, it can be a challenging river to fish and have success. Damien picked up a fly rod for the first time in April 2018, an old Bass Pro 6-weight setup I no longer had use for. We practiced casting while the snow was still on the ground and hit a pond close to the house to try to catch some farmed rainbows. When the water on the Bow cleared enough, we were out on the water almost every week. Damien's casting got better and better with each trip, but never had any luck hooking into fish. Finally, on a cool day in September, we went on a day trip to the southern part of the province to fish the Crow's Nest River. It's smaller water and a bit easier to read and find fish. We had seen a few rainbows rising in the nice run. We tried our best to move slowly into position, which is not easy when Damien gets excited about something. Although I've been known to spook my fair share of rising fish, rushing my clumsy ass into position. After a few attempts, Damien got on a nice drift, going with the pheasant-tail nymph. The indicator slammed under, and Adam yelled, "Set, set, set," scaring the shit out of Damien. But the rod, too, went up, and the fight was on. After a bit of a clunky battle, we netted the gorgeous rainbow. I'll let the picture tell you how excited we both were to get the fish on for Damien. That's a really amazing story about somebody's first fish, and it sounds like a beautiful fish. We do have the picture here, and it's amazing. They're both super excited. We'll post that on the SoFly Spotlight. We'll post that on our social for sure. Thank you so much, Adam, for sending that in. Sounds like you and Damien had a really nice day out on the water, and that's what it's all about. Okay?
Yeah, for sure.
And we got another story sent in from Brandon. Brandon, this is Brandon Gabler's best 2018 moment. Earlier in the week, I had mentioned going fishing later that weekend, and my oldest daughter, Harper, overheard me. A few days passed, and the day I planned on fishing ended up being a cold, rainy day. There's no way she'll ever want to go, I thought. From the moment she woke up at 7 a.m., she was asking to go. Oh, that's hilarious. No matter how many times I tried to tell her it was raining and cold, she responded with, "It's only water, I'll wear my coat." Look at that perseverance. Around noon, we decided to venture out for carp. It was the only fish I knew was still in the area. The weather wasn't giving us any chance to let up, but Harper was... The weather wasn't giving up, and the wind started to pick up a little more, and Harper was finally starting to get cold. So he took off his vest he was wearing and gave it to her. She also had his hat to sit on so she wouldn't get wet. Harper was appeased, at least for the time being. A few minutes passed, and she mentioned that she was getting cold again. At this moment, the left rod began to bend down, and then it stopped. Bend down, then it stopped. Figured I'd nudge it a little. That little nudge was all we were going to get for the day. A minute or two went by, and the rod was bouncing again. The line began to peel off the reel, and I jumped to my feet and pulled back the rod and set the hook, and the fight was on. My phone just happened to be in the breast pocket of my vest, which Harper was sitting on, fumbling with the coat. She couldn't figure out what pocket I was talking about, so I handed her the rod. If any of you fish with a 4-year-old, you know they're quick on the reel, and the hook is never truly set. By the time I got the phone out, Harper had the fish nearly to the bank. Oh my God, that's amazing. I grabbed the line and handed her the phone, and she kept saying, "We caught one, it's a big one." All while I was saying, "Take a picture, Harper, hurry, get a few pictures on my phone." The battle was now over, the memories were made, the venture back to the house had begun. We were both cold now. Little did I know I'd quickly warm up by carrying our gear, both poles and Harper. That's awesome. It's a great story, Brandon. Thank you so much for sending that in.
So good. I love hearing stories with kids because they all remember that, you know? Okay, this next story is from Sean Davis. Fly fishing was a type of fishing I had always been fascinated with. The casting, fly selection, fly tying, environment knowledge, and reading it, the solitude it allows, the camaraderie it provides, all of it. After several nights of drinks and much back and forth with a friend who has fly fished for years before getting me on the river, I traded a box of cigar for my first what will likely be many fly rods and a handful of flies and some odds and sods to get me started. Jump forward a couple few months, I found myself gearing up with shiny new waders and boots, my new, to me, fly setup, and the vision of catching the biggest thing to ever come out of the Credit River without a clue how to do it. With each step down the streams, the fear I had of falling and becoming a walking water balloon lessened, and my questions about why cast there and not here, or why that streamer and not this fly, became too much for my friend guide, and he put me on the bank and said, "You're a smart guy, figure it out." 30 minutes later, 30 minutes later, after working a bank and fallen trees to death, I felt the fight of my first brown, give and take 18 inches, and knew I would be a fly fisherman for life. The rest of the day resulted in my friend breaking 2 rods, including his wife's, and the one he had just had fixed from breaking weeks before. Him falling in the river and becoming a walking bag of water. Me coming up for more questions and thoughts for our next outing, and what I believe to be the best part of angling and hunting. A spirit of friendship and belonging to what I feel to be really special community. 6 or so months later, after collecting a pile of books, magazine, and website to go through over the winter, I found myself at a table at Left Field Brewery with a vice in front of me, on edge at a rabbit hole I did not inspect. The world fly tying. Catching that brown, not solidified my love for fly fishing that introductions to fly tying did. From all those instructions to my conversation with Gab, thanks man, I came away with a need to learn about this amazing sport and delighted to meet others who shared similar views on conversation. Thanks so much, John Davis. And it's all about conversation. You know, we spend so much time inside our house by ourselves tying flies and thinking about it. It's nice to get out, grab a beer, some libations, and talk with other like-minded people.
Alex Alsop, thank you so much for sending in the story. This is Alex's best 2018 story. In July, my girlfriend and I drove to Tofino for a weekend getaway. It rained the entire drive. We listened to the SoFly episode 12. Hey, thank you, brother. Except for about 3 hours when we stopped in Port Alberni, about 2 hours outside of Tofino. Port Alberni is home to some of the best steelhead fishing on the West Coast. My girlfriend let me spend 2 hours on the river before we continued our drive. That's pretty rad. Good girlfriend. Sounds like a nice lady. While using a fairly heavily weighted streamer, I managed to snag my fly in the rocks on the bottom of the river. Not wanting to lose the fly, I took my shoes off and rolled up my pants. I did not have my waders on me, so he was just wet wading in his pants and started to wade into the river. I was about knee deep when I realized that the river went a lot deeper than I thought. I continued into the river up to my waist deep in water, got one arm soaked trying to fish the fly to the rocks, turned back to the shore in triumph that I did not lose the fly, and just to see my girlfriend dying of laughter. As I started to wade back to the shore, the heavens opened up and I got even wetter. Oh my God. Mm-hmm. We ran back to the car, I stripped down my underwear and proceeded to drive the next 2 hours in just my boxers. Although I didn't catch any fish, seeing the smile on my girlfriend's face was definitely worth getting soaked over. Amazing. Great story. Thanks so much for sending it in.
You know what? It's not always about, like, we love to catch fish. There's no doubt about that, you know? Mm-hmm. But the adventure is what's fun. The guy drove with no pants on.
Yeah.
This is what it's all about.
And hanging out with people that you love.
Yeah. You're with your girlfriend.
In Tofino.
You're driving after a steelhead day, and you got no pants on.
Tofino's so awesome. So, okay, there's got one more story left here. I'm going to read this. I'm going to read this one out because this is my cousin.
It is your cousin?
Yeah. Brendan Snively. My name is Brendan Snively. I'm from Normandale, Ontario. I'm cousins to the infamous Mitch Dusling. I'm a trout fisherman who loves throwing spinners and spoons, and when the time is right, I love using my center pin. The story I have for the 2018 year is two-parter. First, which is short and sweet. I was in the market for a new pole, even though my wife says I have too many. She doesn't believe we need different fishing poles for different weather, temperatures, different days of the week, etc. So I got online with the old favorite Cabela's and picked out a beauty 9-foot Fenwick. Very versatile. When it arrived, I opened it up to find 2 poles in the box, both the same. Lucky for my wife, she now has the chance to enjoy my obsession. The second part of my 2018 fishing year, with my new poles in hand, the father-in-law and I went up to northern Ontario to a small cabin north of Nakina. It was mid-August. The weather stayed awesome all week. Driving up took us roughly 18 hours. Once we got to Nakina, we had another 2 hours down a part gravel, part dirt road and ended up at a small cabin nestled on a giant river which they had all to themselves. Along the way, I got to see the Northern Lights for the first time, which was incredible. That is incredible. The cabin rental came supplied with boats, motors, and fuel, so there was no worries for breaking down or running out of fuel. We fished for 5 days and caught an unlimited number of walleye and pike. It didn't matter what I threw. Spinners, spoons, jigs, flies, even leeches. We were hammering fish all week long. I did try for some brook trout in the early mornings early mornings at some said hot spots, but was unsuccessful. Might have been too late in the season, or even the water was quite high. Either way, the trip was amazing, and I can't wait to go again. Also, the amount of wildlife we saw was awesome. We encountered a cow moose and had some beavers swimming around, smashing their tails out the water. Fortunately for me, Santa Claus brought me some flies this year, so this 2019 season is going to be the year of the fly. So, Mr. Doosling, I'm going to need some mentoring. Well, you better look at somewhere else. Definitely not Yilma. Aldo and Gab can teach you.
Hey, so are you.
Yeah,
like,
okay.
I don't deserve as much credit as you guys give me. I'm a shit teacher.
We'll for sure hit the water. I enjoyed the podcasts and have a lot to catch up on. Keep the show going. It's great. Thanks for the chance to tell my story, and I wish you guys all the luck 2019 season. Brandon, thank you so much. I'll give you a text after this, and we'll set up a date to go fishing.
Brandon, that was such a good trip. You got
it's cool.
Like a lot of fish and saw wildlife.
Mm-hmm.
That right there. That can be
Species.
1 day, that can be 2 days, that can be a week. It's amazing in itself.
It was our trip up to Attawapiskat, December 2018.
Yeah.
That was my
and
favorite.
even on the Attawapiskat River, we had some day that the fish were not that cooperating. Like, we always caught, but sometimes you had to work for it.
Well, your boat.
Yes. That is true.
Just kidding. I'm just
But
messing.
hey, and
There is.
I mean,
Sometimes you have to work.
we search for moose
Yeah.
almost every single day,
Yes.
and we didn't see a single one.
Heard 'em.
We heard one,
That one day. Ooh,
Yeah.
that was crazy.
but hey, didn't see any moose because there's
Yep.
too much wolf. Beautiful problem.
Problem.
to
I
have,
know.
right?
It's very true. Thank you, everybody, so much for sending in your stories. Honestly, we're so many stories here. We have like tons and tons of stories, and it's great to hear from everybody's 2018 season that everybody's doing good. We got 2 hoodies to give away, and we're going to give them away right now. I think the first one, I'm going to say the first one I got is going out to Adam Mass. Adam, thank you so much for sending in that story of you and Damien going out fishing and catching, and Damien catching his first fish for the first time. That was an awesome story. We all loved it. And you know what? We're going to send a hoodie to Damien too, so you guys can have a matching hoodies. You guys can wear them around your girlfriend and really bug her. That's always fun, right?
And they are very comfortable.
They're so comfortable. Gabs, who's getting hoodie number 2? Come on, baby.
Number 2 will be given to Justin Garant because
Congratulations.
it was an amazing story. Take your kids fishing. Doesn't matter how old they are.
Yes.
In a stroller, in a backpack, in a basket.
It's just a nice story about just Ontario fly fishing, man. It's great.
Ontario,
I love it.
and about sharing too. You know, you gotta teach. You gotta show people.
Yeah. So everybody, thank you so much for sending all those stories in.
Yes.
Congratulations, Adam, Damien, and Justin on those hoodies. We'll send them out to you. We're going to hit you guys up in the old emails. And thank you so much for listening to this James Bond show.
Yeah. Thank you.
It was
James Bond is a wealth of knowledge.
a legend.
It's crazy. Like, we talked a lot about cane and bamboo rod, but he's a wealth of knowledge about the river that he fished.
Yeah.
He just knows so much more. We just literally scratched a tiny part of his knowledge tonight.
He's a legend.
We can probably spend 5 hours with him and learn something every second of it. It was really awesome, and it's so good for him to come during a snowstorm day.
Thank you so much, James Bond, for coming on the show. It was awesome. And thanks, everybody, for listening. And thank you for sending your stories. And lots of thank yous to the show. But I really appreciate everybody listening. And take care.
Doodle-doo, 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 doodle-doo.
Oh.